When I was in a car accident and hemorrhaging heavily, Lu Wenju held my hand and said, "Gigi, don't be afraid, I'll mobilize every resource in the hospital to save you." 3 days later, I woke up from my coma. As the nurse changed my bandages, she whispered outside the door, "The director's wife is really pitiful. Half her blood was swapped out by the director for Miss Chen." I didn't cry, I just opened the voice recording app on my phone under the pillow and rasped, "Is the Miss Chen? You're talking about Chen Yingxue?" The moment I asked that, the ward fell silent, as if someone had hit the mute button. 2 nurses stood at the door, one holding a tray of supplies, the other still clutching my thermometer. The younger one's face went pale, her lips twitching, but she didn't dare make a sound. The older nurse reacted quickly, stepping in with a strained smile. "Miss Lin, you're awake. We were talking about another patient. You must have misheard." I glanced at her name tag, Ju Yun. 3 years ago, when Lu Wenju first took over this hospital, the nursing station was short-staffed. I helped him with internal communications back then. Little Ju had just graduated, standing at the back of the crowd, so nervous she stuttered through her self-introduction. I remembered her, and she remembered me. That's why she couldn't meet my eyes. I didn't call her out, I just moved my fingers. The 4 needle was taped to the back of my hand, with a ring of purple bruising around the puncture site, like someone had pressed it down roughly. My chest felt heavy, and every breath I took scraped like fine glass grinding under my ribs. "How long was I out?" I asked. Little Ju whispered. 3 days. 3 days. I repeated. "Where's Lu Wenju?" The older nurse said, "The director is in surgery. He left orders to notify him as soon as you woke up." I stared at the monitor by the bed. The numbers weren't great, but I was alive. Being alive should have been something to be grateful for, but that sentence outside the door was like a thorn, burrowing deep into my core. Half her blood was swapped out by the director for Miss Chen. Lucky the wife survived, thanks to someone donating blood just in time. I closed my eyes, and the last image before the crash flashed through my mind. A rainy night, an intersection, a runaway truck slamming into me from the side, glass shattered, my leg was pinned, and my abdomen felt warm. I heard someone scream, heard the ambulance siren, heard Lu Wenju rushing to my side. That day, he was wearing a dark blue surgical gown, not even bothering to change into his white coat. He knelt half on the wet ground, his palm pressing against my wound. "Gigi, don't fall asleep." I was shaking from the pain, and I saw his eyes redden. I said, "Wenju, am I going to die?" He gripped my hand tightly, word by word. "No, you're my wife. I'll mobilize every resource in the hospital to save you." Those words were the last rope I clung to before I passed out, but now, someone told me he'd cut that rope in half and used the other end to tie someone else. "Miss Lin, don't talk yet," Little Ju said, her hands trembling as she peeled back the bandage. "The wound isn't fully stable yet." I turned my head to look at her. "I'm not Miss Lin," I said. "I'm Lu Wenju's legal wife." Little Ju froze. My voice was soft but clear. "So I have the right to know about my condition." The older nurse frowned. "Madam, it's better to wait for the director to explain the specifics. If he wanted to say it, he should have said it 3 days ago." I lifted my eyes. How much blood did I receive? Where are the resuscitation records? Did I go into secondary shock during surgery? They both stayed silent. I let out a faint smile. The smile tugged at my wound, and the pain made everything go black for a second. Little Ju instinctively reached out to steady me. "Madam," I grabbed her sleeve, using all my strength to ask, "Did I almost die?" Little Ju's eyes turned red. That was all the confirmation I needed. Just then, the ward door swung open. Lu Wenju stood in the doorway, still in his white coat, his hair a mess, dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me awake, his eyes lit up first, then, sensing the tense atmosphere, his gaze swept over the 2 nurses. "You two, step out." Little Ju lowered her head and picked up the tray. As she reached the door, I suddenly spoke. "Little Ju, close the door." Her steps faltered. Lu Wenju frowned. "Gigi, you just woke up, don't strain yourself." I looked at him. "Then tell me, why am I so weak?" He walked over to the bed, softening his voice. "You were badly injured in the crash, ruptured spleen, internal bleeding in the abdomen. Waking up is already a miracle. You need to take it slow to recover." "How much blood did I get?" "You don't need to worry about those medical details." I asked how much blood I got. Lu Wenju paused for a second. That 1 second was enough. He sat down, reaching for my hand. I pulled my hand back under the blanket. His hand froze in midair. Gigi, he said in a low voice, you can't get worked up right now. I stared at the wedding ring on his ring finger. I picked that ring myself, the year we got married. He wasn't the dean yet, just a surgeon who stayed up late every night doing operations. He said doctors couldn't wear anything too fancy on their hands, so I chose the simplest plain band. Later, as his surgeries piled up, the ring often came off and stayed in his office. I never complained. I always thought, he's saving lives, I should be understanding, but understanding got me this. Between Chen Yingxue and me, he chose to tell me to tough it out. How's Chen Yingxue? I asked. Lu Wenchu's brow twitched violently. Who told you? He didn't ask why I suddenly brought her up, he only asked who told me. The last shred of hope in my heart finally sank. So it's true, I said. Lu Wenju lowered his voice. Gigi, it's not what you think. Yingxue was also in critical condition at the time. She has a rare blood type, and the hospital's blood supply was limited. I had to make decisions based on triage priority. Triage priority. I slowly turned my head to look at him. I was in a car accident with massive bleeding. What was she? He avoided my eyes. She had post-operative bleeding. It was dangerous too. So you diverted the blood meant for me to her. It wasn't meant for you. His voice finally turned cold. The blood supply belongs to the hospital's unified allocation system. It doesn't belong to any individual. That sentence hit me like a slap. I looked at him and suddenly felt like I didn't know him. 3 days ago, he knelt in the rain and called me his wife. 3 days later, he sat by my hospital bed and said the blood supply didn't belong to any individual, so promises were promises, and signatures were signatures. When it came down to the real choice, I was just the one who could be explained away. I closed my eyes. Get out. Lu Wenju froze. What did you say? I'm tired, I said. Please get out. He looked like he didn't understand. In the past, whenever we fought, I was always the one to back down first, because he was busy, because he was tired, because he was a doctor, because I couldn't let trivial life matters affect his surgical performance. He was used to me stepping back, so now that I told him to leave, he found it absurd. Gigi, you just woke up. Don't take it out on your body out of spite. I smiled. If I were spiteful, I would have died on the operating table 3 days ago. Lu Wenchu's face changed instantly. Lin Gigi. Footsteps came from outside the door. Xiao Ju probably hadn't gone far yet. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked at him. Lu Wenju, you're a doctor. You know better than anyone that surgical records, transfusion logs, and blood allocation authorizations don't just vanish into thin air. The color drained from his face. I continued. If you leave now, I'll still look into it myself. If you keep standing here giving me orders, I'll have my lawyer investigate. Lu Wenju stared at me, his expression so complex it was almost dark. After a long time, he finally stood up. Get some rest, he said. We'll talk when you've calmed down. I didn't answer. He reached the door and stopped. Yingxue doesn't know about this. Don't take it out on her. I almost laughed. I was lying in a hospital bed, needles in my body, the incisions still oozing blood, and the first thing he worried about was me taking it out on Chen Yingxue. I said, get lost. Lu Wenchu's back stiffened. He had never heard me say that word. After the door closed, I reached under my pillow and grabbed my phone. The recording was still going, the timer at 12 minutes and 7 seconds. I saved it, named it, first time. Then I pressed the call button for the nurse. When Xiao Ju came in, her eyes were red. I didn't make things hard for her. I just said, help me arrange a transfer. She was startled. Your condition isn't stable yet. Then find a hospital that can take me. I took a breath. And do one more thing for me. What? Tell me where I can apply for a copy of my intraoperative transfusion records. Xiao Ju's face went pale. I looked at her, my voice soft. I'm not asking for anything illegal. I just want what I'm legally entitled to as a patient. She was silent for a long time, then finally nodded. The medical records department needs the dean's signature, but you can apply to have them sealed first. Good. I leaned back against the pillow and stared at the ceiling. 3 days ago, I put my life in Lu Wenchu's hands. 3 days from now, I'm taking it back myself. Lu Wenju never expected me to transfer hospitals that same day. He never expected that. While my body couldn't even sit upright, I'd already sent Jiang Nan to the medical records department with a lawyer's letter and a request to seal the files. Jiang Nan was my college classmate and also my colleague before I got married. We used to handle medical dispute mediation together. Later, she continued as a lawyer, while I switched to working for a public welfare fund for Lu Wenchu's hospital. When she rushed into the ward, her face looked even worse than mine. Lin Jiji, you're something else. She stood by the bed, eyes red as she scolded me. Something this big happens, and you only tell me after you wake up. I gave a weak smile. Didn't get a chance before I woke up. She set the documents on the bedside table and asked, holding back her anger, are you sure you want to transfer hospitals? I'm sure. Did Lu Wenju agree? It's my body. I don't need his agreement. Jiang Nan was silent for 2 seconds, then nodded. Fine, I'll handle it. My mother arrived too the moment she saw me. The thermos in her hand dropped straight to the floor. Soup spilled out, steam rising all over the ground. She covered her mouth and said nothing for a long time. I thought I would cry, but strangely, seeing her there, I actually calmed down. Mom, I'm fine. She came over, her hand trembling as she touched my face. This is fine. Your face this pale, and you call this fine? I took her hand. I want to transfer hospitals. She looked at me and didn't ask why. My mom has never been one to talk much. She just stared at me for 3 seconds, then turned to Jiang Nan and said, what do I need to sign? Jiang Nan said, Auntie, Gigi is fully conscious. She can sign herself. You just help prepare her clothes and a caregiver. Okay. Lu Wenju showed up half an hour later. By then, Jiang Nan had already gone to the medical records office, and Xiaoju was helping me sort out the 4 lines. The ambulance was arranged. The new hospital had confirmed the transfer, just waiting for the transport doctor to arrive. Lu Wenju pushed the door open, his face dark and terrifying. Xiaoju, who told you to arrange the transfer? Xiaoju's hand shook in fright. I looked up. I did. Lu Wenju turned to me. Lin Jiji, do you even know what condition you're in right now? You just came back from the brink of death. Transferring now, if anything goes wrong on the way, who's responsible? I am. You. He let out a bitter laugh. What are you going to take responsibility with? Gambling with your life against me. I stared at him. My life was already gambled away by you 3 days ago. The ward fell completely silent. Lu Wenchu's anger seemed to be choked off by those words. Stuck in his throat, my mother stood to the side, her face turning cold. What does that mean? Lu Wenju immediately said, Mom, Ji just woke up. She's emotionally unstable, listening to gossip from others. My daughter nearly died. My mother's voice trembled. What's wrong with her? Asking a few questions. Lu Wenju rubbed his temples, as if holding back. I'm not saying she can't ask. I'm afraid she'll be misled. The rescue scene was complicated. Outsiders don't understand at all. I smiled. So I got someone who does to look into it. Lu Wenju glanced at the documents on the bedside table, saw Jiang Nan's business card, and his face darkened another shade. You hired a lawyer? Yeah, for this little misunderstanding. I slowly sat up a bit, the wound pain making sweat bead on my forehead. My mother immediately steadied me. Don't move. I locked eyes with Lu Wenju, speaking slowly and deliberately. I had a massive hemorrhage. You diverted the blood supply, and I only survived because a stranger donated blood on the spot. You call that a misunderstanding? Lu Wenchu's Adam's apple bobbed. He didn't argue. My mother's hand froze on my shoulder. She turned to look at Lu Wenju, her gaze turning unfamiliar. Is what she said true? Lu Wenju was silent for a moment. Both sides were critical at the time. I could only make the most reasonable medical judgment. My mother suddenly raised her hand and slapped him hard across the face. The sound was loud. Xiaoju stepped back in fright. Lu Wenchu's face was turned to the side, and he didn't move for a long time. My mother cried out, cursing, she's your wife. She was lying on the operating table waiting for blood. How could you do this? Lu Wenju closed his eyes. Mom, a doctor can't just look at personal relationships. Then why did you tell her before you passed out that you'd use every hospital resource to save her? My mother pressed. Since you're so fair, why didn't you tell her you were going to share those resources with someone else? Lu Wenju didn't answer. Of course he wouldn't answer because it wasn't fairness, it was a choice. I said softly, Mom, don't talk to him anymore. My mother turned her head, tears still falling. I said, I want to leave. She immediately wiped away her tears. Okay, Mom will take you away. Lu Wenju reached out to block me. Gee, you can't go. I looked at his hand. That hand had saved many people, had pushed open many operating room doors. Now it was blocking my hospital bed, not blocking danger. but blocking the path for me to leave him. Move, I said. You're not in your right mind right now. I'm perfectly rational. I gestured for Xiao Ju to open the bedside drawer, more rational than ever. Inside the drawer were my phone, my ID, and a small jewelry pouch containing my wedding ring. I took the ring off in front of Lu Wenju. Because I had lost so much weight, it slid off my ring finger with almost no resistance. I placed it on the nightstand. Lu Wenju, from now on, I will no longer accept any arrangements from your hospital as the director's wife. Lu Wenju's face changed. Do you have to turn this into a scene? I'm not the one making a scene, I said. You already made it a scene when you abandoned me on the operating table. He stared at me, a flicker of panic finally showing in his eyes. Gigi, Ying Shue's situation was really critical back then. She was injured because of me before, and I owe her. You owe her, so you repay with my blood. He fell silent. My mother was trembling with rage. Lu, do you have any shame left? Lu Wenju said in a low voice. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? I asked. You thought that because I'm your wife, I would understand. You thought that because I love you, I could endure it. You thought that after I woke up, as long as you explained a few words, I would swallow this like I've swallowed everything else before. His eyes widened. I knew I had hit the mark. We had been married for 7 years before Chen Yingxue returned to the country. I always thought Lu Wenju and I were just an ordinary couple with too much time apart. He was busy, so I understood. He was tired, so I gave way. He wanted to open a hospital, so I used my premarital savings to help him with cash flow. When his charity projects ran out of money, I went to foundations and corporate donors for funding. He stood on stage accepting awards, while I stood in the audience handling patient complaints for him. Everyone said the director had married a good wife. Even I believed it myself. It wasn't until now that I understood. A good wife meant someone who could be sacrificed. The transport doctor arrived. Jiang Nan also returned. Her face was cold. The medical records office refused to copy the complete blood transfusion records, saying it requires the director's approval. Lu Wenju looked at her. Lawyer Jiang, that's hospital procedure. Jiang Nan gave a faint smile. Director Lu, it's also procedure for the patient herself to apply for the sealing of medical records. I've already submitted a written application and simultaneously contacted the medical dispute mediation window at the Health Commission. Please make sure the hospital preserves the resuscitation records, blood bank allocation records, and hallway surveillance footage from 2:00 a.m. to 5:00 a.m. on March 17. Lu Wenju's face completely changed. He looked at me. Gigi, do you really want to do this? I let the nurse help me onto the transport bed as I passed by him. I paused. Lu Wenju, when you were saving Chen Yingxue, did you ever think that I would hurt too? His lips moved, but no words came out. I was wheeled toward the elevator at the end of the hallway. The door to the VIP ward was half open. Chen Yingxue sat on the bed in her hospital gown, her face pale. Lu Wenju's jacket draped over her shoulders. She heard the commotion, looked up, and her eyes first showed surprise, then quickly welled up with tears. She called out softly, Sister Gigi. I didn't stop. Her voice came from behind me. I'm sorry, I didn't know this would happen. Lu Wenju instinctively turned to look at her. That one glance was enough to make me completely give up. Just before the elevator doors closed, I saw him standing in the middle of the hallway, with me on one side and Chen Yingxue on the other. He didn't chase after me. He chose to stay there again. I closed my eyes and said to Jiang Nan, help me prepare the divorce papers. Jiang Nan held my hand. You should have done this a long time ago. On the first night after the transfer, the pain was so intense I barely slept. The new hospital's ward wasn't as luxurious as Lu Wenju's hospital. The curtains were light grey. There was an old floor lamp in the corner, and the nurse walked softly, but I felt at ease, because Lu Wenju wasn't here. At 4:00 a.m., I woke up from the pain in my wound, grabbed my phone, and found 27 missed calls, all from Lu Wenju, plus a dozen messages. Ji, pick up the phone. You can't be stubborn with your body right now. I've already asked the medical records office to prepare the materials, but don't go to the media, and don't let the lawyer escalate this. Ying Shuai is in a very bad state emotionally. She keeps saying she's sorry to you. We need to talk. The last one was sent at 3:57 a.m. I'll be waiting for you at home. I stared at those words and suddenly felt like laughing. Home. He probably still thought that home was our mutual retreat, but from the moment I lay on the operating table and couldn't get blood, I no longer had a home. In the morning, Jiang Nan took 2 movers to the wedding house Lu Wenju and I shared. I didn't go, I sat on the hospital bed, watching the house I'd lived in for 7 years through a video. The living room was still the same. On the wall hung a photo of Lu Wenju with his trophy, wearing a suit on stage, with a dark grey tie I'd picked out for him beside him. In the photo, I stood in the corner, smiling gently. The mover asked, "Ms. Lin, what should we take?" I said, "My books from the 2nd to the 5th shelf on the left bookcase in the study, my clothes from the right cabinet in the walk-in closet, my documents and old photo album from the bedside table in the master bedroom. Don't touch the kitchen." Jiang Nan walked into the walk-in closet with her phone, the camera sweeping past a row of men's suits. My clothes only took up the right third. Before marriage, I loved buying pretty dresses. After marriage, Lu Wenju always said hospital settings demanded professionalism, and my wardrobe slowly turned into black, white, and grey. I stared at those clothes and suddenly felt I didn't need any of them. "Just take the documents and a few everyday outfits," I said. "Donate the rest." Jiang Nan paused. "You sure?" "Sure." She didn't argue. In the bedside table of the master bedroom was a velvet box holding the vow cards Lu Wenju and I exchanged at our wedding. Jiang Nan opened it, glanced at it, and "Cursed," I said. "Burn it." "You sure?" "Yeah." Jiang Nan closed it. "Burning it is too easy for him. I'll keep it as evidence." I couldn't help but laugh. What kind of evidence are vows? Proof he was once human. I laughed until the pain from my wound made me wince. My mother immediately set down her water glass. "Stop laughing." I nodded. Halfway through the move, Jiang Nan found a locked drawer in the study. Password, my birthday. She entered it, and the drawer opened. Inside was a stack of documents, a prenuptial property agreement, records of early payments from the hospital's charity fund, a record of a piece of equipment I'd personally guaranteed for Lu Wenju, and a few old bank account statements. I'd kept all this not to guard against him, just out of work habit. Someone in medical compliance knows best to always leave a trail. What ended up saving me wasn't love, but the habit I never dropped back then. Jiang Nan photographed each document one by one. "We're taking all of these," I said. "And the safe?" The safe was hidden in the study wall. The password was our wedding anniversary. Inside were property deeds, car titles, some jewelry, and an old USB drive. That USB drive held backup data from the hospital's early days, including project plans I'd written for Lu Wenju, foundation cooperation agreements, and a list of patient aid recipients. I stared at it, a dull ache in my heart. Back then, I truly believed we were doing something good. Lu Wenju saved lives, and I held down the fort behind him. He fought death in the operating room, while I fought time, money, complaints, and family communication in the office. We used to be partners then. At some point, he stepped into the spotlight, and I was left behind. Later, when Chen Yingxue came back, he didn't even want to leave me a spot behind him. At 5 in the afternoon, Jiang Nan finished the move. She placed the wedding ring on the bedside table in the master bedroom, with the divorce agreement underneath. Next to the agreement was a list of evidence. Item 1. Application to seal the medical records from the early morning rescue on March 17 th. Item 2. Request to retrieve the blood transfusion department's allocation records. Item 3. Pending review of Lu Wenju and Chen Yingxue's relationship and resource exchanges. Item 4. Details of marital assets and the hospital's charity fund prepayments. Item 5. Recording of Lu Wenju's conversation in the hospital room. Jiang Nan asked me, "Anything else?" To leave, I thought for a moment. Write one line. "What, Lu Wenju? Explain whether you considered me your wife when you signed to redirect the blood supply." Jiang Nan wrote it down and pressed the paper flat. After the video call ended, I leaned back on the bed, too exhausted to lift a finger. My mother peeled an apple and handed it to me. "Really decided?" I nodded. She was silent for a moment, then said, "Mom won't talk you out of it. When you were little, you'd fall, cry twice, and get back up. When you grew up, you started worrying too much about others. Gigi, you can't always make things easier for everyone else." My eyes finally grew warm. "Mom, am I stupid?" She patted my head. "Not stupid. You trusted him." I closed my eyes. Trusting the wrong person isn't a crime. Never waking up is. At 9 in the evening, Lu Wenju came home. Jiang Nan had the property management send me the door camera footage in advance. In the footage, Lu Wenju entered the password and walked in, carrying an insulated bag. Probably he'd finally remembered I needed soup after waking up. He was calm when he entered. First, he changed his shoes, put the insulated bag on the dining table, then called out, "Gigi." No one answered. He walked into the master bedroom. 3 seconds later, he rushed out. He opened the walk-in closet, the study, the safe, then charged back to the living room. That face, always calm and composed, finally cracked. He called me. I didn't pick up. He called Jiang Nan. Instead, Jiang Nan answered and put it on speaker. Lu Wenju's voice was laced with barely contained anger. "Where did you take Gigi?" Jiang Nan sneered. "Director Lu, she left on her own. Adults have the freedom to move, not under their husband's custody. She's still not recovered. Exactly why she needs to stay far from you." Lu Wenju's breathing was heavy. "Let her talk to me." I nodded to Jiang Nan to bring the phone closer. I spoke. "Did you see the agreement?" Silence on the other end. After a long pause, Lu Wenju finally said, "Lin Gigi, do you really have to go this far?" I said, "I didn't go this far. You signed that authorization form first." His voice dropped. "I'll explain." "Good," I said. "Put it in writing and give it to my lawyer. We're husband and wife, not for much longer." Lu Wenju seemed stung by those words. "I won't agree to a divorce." I stared at the night outside the window. "I don't need your agreement right now. Mediation, lawsuit, separation, evidence. I can go through the whole process." "Gigi, don't push me." I laughed. "Lu Wenju, when I was lying on the operating table waiting for blood, did you push me?" Silence on the line. I moved the phone away and nodded at Jiang Nan. She hung up on the surveillance feed. Lu Wenju stood in the middle of the living room, then suddenly turned and smashed the thermos bag onto the floor. Soup spilled everywhere. He crouched down, hand pressed to his forehead, as if he finally realized that this time, I wouldn't clean up his mess. But I didn't feel sorry anymore. I only felt relief. On the third day at the new hospital, my condition stabilized a bit. The wound still hurt. I got winded after 2 steps, and my face was as pale as paper, but my mind had never been clearer. When Jiang Nan brought the first batch of documents, I was sitting on the hospital bed practicing leg lifts. The rehab therapist said the soft tissue damage in my legs was severe and recovery would be slow. I was sweating from the pain, but I didn't stop. My body is mine, my life is mine. I can't hand it over to anyone else again. Jiang Nan placed the file folder on the tray table. "Get yourself ready first." I wiped my sweat. "Go ahead." She opened the file. "This is the basic medical record obtained through the patient's own application. The complete record is still under seal. Your intraoperative blood loss was significant. The first blood transfusion request was at 2:47 a.m. The blood bank confirmed 4 units of matched suspended red blood cells, with another 2 units of fresh frozen plasma being prepared." I nodded. These terms weren't foreign to me, but at 3:12 a.m., the transfusion department log shows 2 units of red blood cells were redirected to VIP operating room 3. I asked, "Cheningshua?" "Yes." Jiang Nan pushed the photocopy toward me. On that paper, the reason for the redirection read, "Emergency rescue authorized by Lu Wenju." His signature. I stared at those 3 characters, suddenly remembering years ago when he first taught me to recognize his surgical signature. He said a doctor's signature had to be fast because there was no time for neat handwriting during a rescue. I laughed at how ugly his writing was back then. He said, "Ugly writing doesn't matter, as long as it saves lives." But now, his writing saved Cheningshua and nearly cost me mine. Jiang Nan looked at me. "There's more." She pulled out another page. At 3:28 a.m., your blood pressure dropped. The anesthesia record notes continue requesting transfusion, but the blood bank was low on stock. It was only replenished later after a car accident victim's family member on-site donated blood that passed screening. I closed my eyes. So if that person hadn't donated, I would have died. Jiang Nan was silent. The answer didn't need to be spoken. My mother sat beside me, her hand trembling around her cup. Suddenly she stood up, rushed to the bathroom, and soon muffled sobs came from inside. I didn't move. I was afraid that if I moved, I'd fall apart too. Jiang Nan said softly, "Gigi, you can cry." I shook my head. "Crying pulls at the wound." She cursed under her breath. "You really are." I smiled. "Keep going," she sighed. Director Han from the transfusion department is willing to see you, but he's cautious. After all, Lu Wenju is the hospital director, and he doesn't want to be accused of internal conflict. I understand, but he said one thing. Jiang Nan looked at me. That night, both sides were in danger, but based on the severity of the condition and the blood type matching priority, your case should not have been deprioritized. I looked up. Is he willing to testify? Not sure yet, but he's willing to go through the proper procedures for an investigation. That's enough most of the time. The so-called truth doesn't need a hero to charge forward and shout, it just needs someone who won't stay silent when they should speak. That afternoon, Director Han arrived. He wore an ordinary jacket, not a white coat, and stood in the hallway for a long time before entering. I had the nurse raise the hospital bed. Director Han, I spoke first. Thank you for agreeing to see me. He looked at me, his expression complicated. Professor Lin, you once fought for equipment funding for our blood transfusion department. I smiled faintly. Back then, I thought if the procedures were perfected, everyone would be treated fairly. Director Han's face showed some embarrassment. He sat down, clasping his hands together. I can't privately give you internal documents, but if the authorities investigate, I'll tell the truth. I'm only asking for facts. Go ahead. That night, the blood allocated to Chen Yingxue, was it originally matched to my emergency reserves? Director Han paused for a moment. Procedurally, blood doesn't belong to individuals, but at the time, in the emergency system, you submitted the request first, and the blood bank prepared based on your emergency needs. Why was it transferred later? The hospital director called personally, saying the VIP operating room 3 was equally urgent, and asked to transfer 2 units over first. Did you warn him about my risk? Director Han pursed his lips. I did. What did he say? Director Han lowered his head. He said you could still hold out with another round of fluid resuscitation, but Miss Chen's underlying conditions were worse, she couldn't wait. I nodded. Anything else? Director Han glanced at me. As if reluctant, I said, please go on, he said. Director Han's voice dropped. Lin Jiji is my wife. I know her physical condition. She'll understand. The ward was very quiet. I could even hear the sound of the 4 drip 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 like the blood I lost that day. I slowly smiled, so that line, she'll understand, wasn't an excuse Lu Wenju made up afterward. It was the sentence he passed on me right then and there because I was his wife. I was supposed to understand because I loved him. I was supposed to yield because I'd always held up over the years. He thought I could hold up this time too. Director Han stood up. Professor Lin, I'm sorry, you didn't sign off on this. But I didn't stop it. You couldn't stop the hospital director, I said. But when the investigation comes, I hope you won't back down again. He nodded solemnly. After Director Han left, Jiang Nan put away the voice recorder. This can't be used directly as illegal evidence, but it helps us piece together the clues. The formal testimony will go through procedures. I know. I looked out the window. This wasn't my first time facing a medical dispute before. I stood on the hospital's side, understanding the doctor's helplessness, the limits of resources, the complexity of emergency rescues. But understanding isn't condoning. A doctor can make tough calls in a crisis, but they can't, because of personal ties, old favors, or interests, default a patient as expendable, and they certainly can't, afterward, use the words she'll understand to shove the sacrificed person back into silence. That evening, Lu Wenju came again. He was blocked outside the ward. The new hospital had visitor registration. Jiang Nan had arranged it in advance. No one could enter without my permission. He stood outside the glass door and called me. I answered. Hey. His voice was hoarse. Let's meet. No need. Director Han came to see you. I didn't deny it. His tone held back anger. You're forcing people inside the hospital to pick sides now. I'm investigating why I almost died. You didn't die. After that sentence blurted out, both ends of the call went silent. Lu Wenju seemed to realize he'd misspoken. His breathing faltered. I didn't mean it that way, I said calmly. But that's your real thought. You didn't die, so don't pursue it. You didn't die. So I can still explain you didn't die, so Chen Yingxue was just saved. No need to make things awkward for everyone. I looked at my pale hand, suddenly wanting to ask him, what if I had died? But I didn't ask because the answer no longer mattered. Lu Wenju said quietly, Gigi, I really had no choice back then. If Yingxue didn't get the blood, she'd go into shock immediately. You were in danger. But I judged you could hold out. I'm a doctor, I couldn't just watch her die. Then why couldn't you just watch me die? You won't die, he said immediately. I won't let you. I laughed. What makes you so sure? He was silent. I said it for him. Because I'm Lin Zhizhi. Because I've endured everything all these years. Held it all together. Because you think I'm tough. Think I'm sensible. Think even if I wake up, I won't really leave you. All that was left on the phone was the sound of breathing. I went on. Lu Wenju, I've already got the blood transfer authorization form. His voice tightened. What do you want? Divorce? Anything but that. A medical complaint. Lin Zhizhi. He finally lost control. Do you know this will ruin me? I closed my eyes. Lu Wenju, when you signed that form, did you know it would ruin me? He said nothing. I hung up outside the glass door. Lu Wenju was still standing there. Before, I used to hate seeing him tired. Now, I just felt it was finally time for him to be exhausted. Chen Yingxue called me on the morning of the 5th day. I had just finished changing my dressing, pain soaking my back completely. My mother had gone downstairs to buy kanji. Jiang Nan was submitting documents at the courthouse, and I was alone in the hospital room when the unfamiliar number rang. I initially didn't want to answer, but seeing the area code matched a landline near Lu Wenchu's hospital, I suddenly changed my mind. I turned on the recording and answered. On the other end of the line, there was first a faint sound of breathing, then a soft female voice. Sister Zhizhi, it's me, Yingxue. I leaned back against the pillow and said nothing. She sounded like she'd been crying, her voice choked with sobs. I know you don't want to hear my explanation, but I really didn't know things would turn out like this. Brother Wenju didn't tell me that the blood was transferred from your side. Brother Wenju, that title hadn't changed since she came back from abroad. The first time I heard it, I even smiled and asked Lu Wenju, does she always call you that? Lu Wenju said, just a habit, don't overthink it. Back then, I really didn't overthink it. Now that I think about it, a lot of things had traces. I just chose to explain them away for him back then. How did you get this number? I asked. Chen Yingxue choked up. After I moved to the new hospital, I changed to a temporary room number and asked the nurse station to block all non-family visits. Not many people could get my number, she quickly said. I asked Brother Wenchu's assistant for it. I just wanted to apologize to you. Before you apologize, let's get this straight. My voice was flat. When did you find out I was also in emergency? She paused. I only found out after I woke up. When was that? The next day, then. Who told you that the blood wasn't transferred from my side? Her breath caught on the other end. I smiled. Chen Yingxue, if you really didn't know, why did you start explaining it right away? She finally stopped crying after a few seconds. Her voice dropped. Sister Zhizhi, do you have to be so aggressive? I almost died too. So what? So no matter what Brother Wenju chose back then, it was to save lives. Was it to save a life, or to save you? She said softly. Is there a difference? Yes, of course there was a difference. If it was just about saving a life, Lu Wenju could have followed protocol, assessed the condition, and let the hospital's expert panel decide together. But he didn't. He signed personally, transferred the blood personally, pushed my risk back, because on the other operating table lay Chen Yingxue. You know the difference, I said. Chen Yingxue started crying again. I admit, after I woke up and heard you weren't doing well, I felt guilty. But Sister Zhizhi, you've already been Brother Wenchu's wife for 7 years. You've had him for 7 years. I just wanted to survive. What did I do wrong? I stared at the ceiling. That sentence finally revealed her true colors. You've had him for 7 years, so what's the harm in giving way once you're the wife? So you should be magnanimous. You've survived, so don't pursue it anymore. I asked softly. Chen Yingxue, do you think my life is also part of the marriage resources, something to be shared with you? She hurriedly said, that's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Her crying grew heavier. I just hope you don't ruin Brother Wenju. He stayed up 3 days and 3 nights without sleep to save both of us. He's so proud, and now you've forced him to the point where he can't even go back to the hospital. This is between you two as a couple. Why drag the hospital into it? I held the phone and slowly sat up straight. The wound hurt so much that sweat beaded on my forehead, but my voice was steady, because he used his authority as hospital director to divert emergency resources away from me. Chen Yingxue fell silent. I pressed on. Who arranged for you to stay in VIP room 3? The hospital arranged it. Who covered your treatment costs? Her breathing grew unsteady. After you returned to China, Did Lu Wenju reduce some of your fees under the guise of public welfare aid? That's the hospital's policy. I wrote that policy. I cut her off. Recipients need to submit proof of financial hardship, a medical assessment, and fund review. Chen Yingxue, you're a young lady of the Chen family. Which condition do you meet? The line went dead quiet. I heard her fingernails lightly scrape against something, like she was clutching the sheets in panic. She didn't expect me to look into this. She didn't expect me to still remember that policy. Sister Gigi, she finally spoke, her voice a bit colder. Doing this now will only make Brother Wenju more exhausted. I laughed. What do I care if he's exhausted or not? You're still husband and wife. Not for long. She was clearly stunned. You really want a divorce? What else? I countered. Keep being a wife whose blood can be diverted whenever he wants. Chen Yingxue paused, then said softly, but Brother Wenju won't agree. Her words were light, but carried a hint of certainty. I asked, what makes you so sure he won't agree? She said, because he knows you can't live without him. I closed my eyes at that moment. I finally knew Chen Yingxue wasn't an innocent patient. She saw things clearer than anyone. She knew how I used to love Lu Wenju, knew how I gave in, knew how I always patched things up after every fight, so she dared to lie in bed and cry, dared to use a single line, I just want to live, to corner everyone into a moral low ground. I wasn't angry, I just felt dirty. Chen Yingxue, I said, you'll regret this call. Before she could answer, the ward door suddenly swung open. Lu Wenju stood at the entrance, his face dark. He'd clearly rushed over. No white coat, shirt sleeves rolled halfway up. Who are you on the phone with? He asked. I turned my phone toward him. The speaker was still on. Chen Yingxue's breathing came through. Lu Wenju's expression shifted. Yingxue, her voice broke into sobs on the other end. Brother Wenju, I just wanted to apologize to Sister Gigi, but she seems to have misunderstood me. Lu Wenju looked at me, his brow furrowed. Gigi, she's not well. Either. Why provoke her? I almost laughed. He didn't even ask what happened. Chen Yingxue cried, and he assumed I provoked her. I set my phone on the bedside table. Lu Wenju, perfect timing. He stepped closer. I'm not here to fight. Yingxue's blood pressure was unstable just now. The doctor said she can't handle emotional stress. If you have any grievances, take them out on me, not her. She called me, I said. She wanted to apologize. Did she apologize? Lu Wenju paused. I played back the recording from earlier. Chen Yingxue's voice came through the phone. You're already Brother Wenju's wife. You've had him for 7 years. I just want to live. What's wrong with that? In the ward, Lu Wenju's face changed slightly. I kept playing. But Brother Wenju won't agree, because he knows you can't live without him. Chen Yingxue screamed on the other end. Sister Gigi, you're recording. I stopped the recording. Yes, I said. From the moment I woke up, every time you came to me, I recorded it. Lu Wenju stared at me. When did you become like this? I looked at him and slowly smiled. From the moment you signed off on taking my blood. His expression looked like he'd been pricked. Chen Yingxue was still crying on the phone. Brother Wenju, I didn't mean it that way. I was just so scared. Lu Wenju instinctively picked up the phone. Yingxue, don't cry yet. I'll come over in a bit. I watched his movements, and the last ripple in my heart faded. He was always like this. Whenever Chen Yingxue shed tears, he'd turn around. I said, Lu Wenju. He stopped. I pointed at the door. Take it outside. My ward isn't the place to comfort her. His gaze darkened. Lin Gigi, do you have to be so sharp? I'm just worried about her blood pressure, I said calmly. After all, you diverted my blood for her. Lu Wenju's face turned ashen. He gripped the phone and walked out. The moment the door closed, I opened another recording and sent it to Jiang Nan. Also, check Chen Yingxue's relief fund application. Jiang Nan quickly replied, got it. Finally caught her tail. I leaned back against the pillow, drenched in cold sweat from the pain, but my heart was steady. Chen Yingxue's tears saved her once. They wouldn't save her a second time. The Lu family came knocking a week later, to be precise. They didn't come directly to the hospital. They called my mother first on the phone. Lu's mother cried as if she had suffered a great injustice. In-laws, what married couple doesn't argue? Now Gigi wants a divorce and is even hiring lawyers to investigate the hospital. Isn't that pushing Wenju to the wall? He's saved so many lives over the years. How can one judgment call in an emergency ruin his future? After listening, my mother only replied, my daughter was almost ruined by him too. Then she hung up. Lu's mother didn't give up. She had Lu's father step in, saying the Lu family was hosting a family dinner and wanted me to come over and clear things up. Jiang Nan almost laughed out loud after hearing that. You just got out of bed, and they want you at a family dinner, I said. I'll go. My mother immediately objected. No, your body can't handle it. I can handle it. I looked at Jiang Nan. What they want to talk about isn't feelings, it's reputation. Coincidentally, I have something to show them too. Jiang Nan thought for a moment. I'll go with you. No need, I said. Wait outside for me. Let them talk about family matters first. Once they've said their fill, you come in. She raised an eyebrow. All right, playing big, not playing. I looked down at the scar from the IV catheter on my wrist. It's collecting a debt. The Lu family villa was just as I remembered in the 7 years I married into the Lu family. I came here every holiday to cook, entertain guests, and take care of the elders. Lu's mother loved face, always inviting all the relatives over, watching me bustle about, then smiling and telling others, Gigi is sensible, she never makes me worry. Back then, I thought that was praise. Later, I realized that being sensible meant they didn't have to feel sorry for me. This time, I entered the door in a wheelchair, and all the Lu relatives were there. Lu's mother sat in the main seat, her eyes red and swollen. Lu's father had a stern face. Lu Wenju stood by the window, and when he saw me being pushed in by the caregiver, his brow furrowed immediately. How did you get so thin? I didn't answer. His concern came too late. It sounded like a polite gesture. Chen Yingxue wasn't there, but her presence was strong. On the coffee table lay a draft statement, roughly saying that Lu Wenju and I had a misunderstanding over the details of the emergency rescue, which had now been resolved through communication. There was no medical violation, and no responsibility would be pursued against the hospital. Seeing that statement, I smiled. Lu's mother immediately said, Gigi, what are you smiling at? Look at the mess you've made of this family. Wenju hasn't eaten or slept well for days, and the hospital has been flooded with complaints. Don't you feel any pain in your heart? I asked, when I was lying on the operating table waiting for blood. Did you feel any pain? Lu's mother's face stiffened. Lu's father said in a deep voice, Gigi, it's already happened. You're fine now, aren't you? In a marriage, you can't just fixate on one thing. I almost died, I said. Lu's father frowned. Don't keep talking about dying. Wenju is a doctor, he has his judgment. You've worked in hospitals too. You should understand the complexity of an emergency scene. Understanding again. I was sick of hearing those two words. I nodded. Understanding the complexity of an emergency doesn't mean understanding a husband diverting his wife's emergency resources to his white moonlight. A relative muttered under her breath. You can't say that. Miss Chen is also a life. I looked at her. So my life isn't a life. She shut up immediately. Lu's mother slapped the table. Gigi, you weren't like this before. You used to be the one who cared most about the big picture. How did you become so spiteful? Before, I cared about the big picture because I thought I was part of it. I lifted my eyes. Then I found out I wasn't. Lu Wenju finally spoke. Mom, stop. Lu's mother was frantic. How can I stop? She's about to ruin your future now. Wenju, you're the best doctor in the city. You can't let this family matter drag you down. I looked at Lu Wenju. Do you think this is just a family matter too? He was silent. I understood he did too. In their eyes, my life was a family matter, while Chen Yingshue's life was a medical judgment. I signaled the caregiver to hand me my bag. Inside the bag was a stack of documents. I placed the first one on the table. This is the revolving fund for the public welfare fund I advanced for Lu Wenshu's hospital in the first 3 years of our marriage, totaling 1,860,000 yuan. Lu's mother's face changed slightly. I placed the second one down. This is the personal loan guarantee I made using my premarital savings to cover the equipment procurement shortfall during the hospital's founding. Lu's father sat up straight. The third document. This is the renovation cost for the Lu family villa last year. Lu Wenju said the hospital was short on funds, so he asked me to front the payment. Lu's mother snapped. That was family business. What are you bringing it up for now? Settling accounts. I placed the final document next to the draft statement. From today onward, I'm stopping all personal advances for Lu Wenju and the hospital's charity projects. For what's already been paid, Attorney Jiang will pursue recovery based on the receipts. The vehicles and supplementary credit cards under my name still in the Liu family's possession must be returned within 3 days. Otherwise, I'll file a police report. The living room fell into dead silence. Liu's mother's voice turned shrill. Are you insane? The hospital fund is about to do its quarterly settlement. Cutting off the money now, you're trying to force Wenju to death. I looked at her. Didn't you just say this was family business? Her face turned green with anger. Liu's father couldn't sit still either. Gigi, we can talk about the money slowly. You can't be this ruthless. When I nearly died, you told me not to fixate on one thing. Now it's about money, and you're the ones panicking. Liu Wenju walked over and lowered his voice. Lin Gigi, do you have to do this in front of all the relatives? When you signed the emergency consent form, you didn't avoid the entire process either. His Adam's apple bobbed. I told you, that was a medical judgment. Fine. I pulled out a voice recorder and placed it on the table. Then say it again in front of your parents and relatives. On the early morning of March 17th, you diverted the 2 units of blood originally prepared for my emergency resuscitation to Chen Yingxue because her condition had higher priority than mine, with no personal relationship involved, and no connection to the Chen family's investment promise to the hospital. Liu Wenju's face changed instantly. Liu's father whipped his head toward him. What investment promise from the Chen family? I smiled. So the Liu family didn't know the full story. Liu Wenju stared at me. You investigated me. I investigated why I almost lost my life. I pulled out a copy of Chen Yingxue's charity fund application. During Chen Yingxue's hospitalization, part of the expenses went through the hospital's charity relief program. On the application form, the recommender was Liu Wenju. The review opinion was approved by the hospital director, Liu Wenju. Can you explain why the eldest daughter of the Chen family qualifies for financial hardship assistance? Liu's mother's face went completely pale. The relatives began whispering among themselves. Liu Wenju reached for the document. I held it down. Don't rush. It's just a copy. The original and electronic records have already been sealed by attorney Jiang. His eyes finally showed panic. Not because I was heartbroken, not because I wanted a divorce, because he knew once this was investigated, it wouldn't just be a marital dispute. Liu's mother rushed over and grabbed my hand. Gigi, if I ever wronged you before, take it out on me. Wenju can't get into trouble. He's the Liu family's hope. I looked at her, gripping my wrist. There were still needle marks. There, I gently pulled my hand back. I'm someone's daughter too. Liu's mother froze. I pushed my wheelchair toward the door. Liu Wenju chased after me to the entrance. Gigi, his voice finally softened. Don't leave yet. Let's talk alone. I stopped and turned to look at him. Liu Wenju, every time you say let's talk alone, you just want me to back down. His lips went white. I said, not this time. Outside, Jiang Nan leaned against the car, holding a file folder. She saw me come out and smiled. Done collecting. I nodded. Half of it, and the other half. I looked back at the brightly lit Liu family villa. I'll collect it at the hearing. Liu Wenju's first real panic came the day after the charity fund was suspended. That morning, the hospital's finance department called him 7 times. The hospital was preparing its quarterly public report. The relief funds meant for 3 critically ill children had yet to arrive. Over the past few years, these temporary gaps were always filled by me first, then reimbursed after corporate donations came through. Finance was used to calling me, the patients' families were used to calling me, even Liu Wenju was used to it. So when I had Jiang Nan send a letter explicitly halting all personal advances and demanding the hospital recalculate Chen Yingxue's improperly waived fees, the entire system felt like a brick had been pulled out. I wasn't at the hospital, but I could picture Liu Wenju standing in his office. He'd frown first, thinking I was overreacting, then he'd call me, only to find I wasn't answering, then he'd have his assistant contact Jiang Nan, only to be shut down with a please follow the written procedure. Finally, he'd realize this time I wasn't threatening him with divorce. I was pulling out, one by one, the things he'd always assumed were his. At 10 a.m., the hospital's finance director sent me a message. Teacher Lin, can you make an exception for the relief program? All 3 children are in critical condition. I stared at it for a long time. My chest felt tight. Those kids were innocent. I had built this relief program with my own hands, so ordinary patients wouldn't have to beg for money on their knees in hospital hallways. But I also knew that if I kept covering for Liu Wenju, He'd never learn where the boundaries were, I replied. Please have the hospital follow standard procedures to activate the special reserve fund. If the reserve fund is insufficient, please explain where the funds went. For the unauthorized waivers involving Chen Yingxue, please disclose them simultaneously. The other side didn't reply. Half an hour later, Lu Wenju called. I answered. His first words were, "Gigi, the kids are innocent." I laughed. So you know what innocent means. Silence on the other end. He lowered his voice. You built this relief program from scratch. Can you bear to see it shut down? The program won't shut down. What's shutting down is me personally paying to plug your holes. The hospital's cash flow is tight right now. If you suddenly pull the funds, it'll affect the patients. Suddenly, I shot back. I gave the finance department 3 written reminders not to base the program's operations on my personal advances. Did you sign off on them? He didn't speak. Of course he had. He just never took it seriously. I continued. I also reminded you that Chen Yingxue didn't qualify for relief waivers. What did you say back then? Lu Wenju's voice dropped. At the time, Yingxue had just returned from abroad and wasn't feeling well. You said she had no one to rely on. I cut him off. But her father owns 2 companies. She was staying in a VIP suite, and her private nurse cost 800 a day. Lu Wenju, using money meant to help the poor to curry favor. Don't you find that ridiculous? His breathing grew heavier. I'll make it up. With what? My personal account. Fine, I said. Make sure to go through the company ledger, note it clearly, and don't make me cover for you again. Lu Wenju finally exploded. Lin Gigi, do we have to talk like this? How did we used to talk? I asked. You say the hospital needs it, and I transfer the money. You say Yingxue is pitiful, and I stay silent. You say the surgery is complicated, and I'm supposed to understand. That wasn't talking, that was me giving in unilaterally. He went silent. I hung up, my chest heaving violently. My mother came in with medicine, frowning. Him again. Yeah, stop answering. I nodded, but things didn't stop just because I stopped answering calls. That afternoon, Jiang Nan brought new news. The so-called investment promise from the Chen family is basically empty. I looked up. What do you mean? Lu Wenju thought Chen Yingshue's father was going to invest in a rehabilitation center construction fund for the hospital, so he's been especially nice to her lately. But I checked the business registrations and public projects. The Chen family company's own cash flow is unstable. The so-called investment is just an intention, no contract. I paused for a moment, then laughed. So he pushed me into danger for a promise that never materialized. Jiang Nan sneered. Plus old feelings. She placed several printed chat screenshots in front of me. They were between Chen Yingxue and Lu Wenju. The source of the screenshots couldn't be used as formal evidence yet, but Jiang Nan had obtained leads through compliant channels. Chen Yingxue had sent parts of the chat to mutual friends, bragging about how Lu Wenju was always there for her. One of them was from Chen Yingxue. Brother Wenju, won't your wife be upset? Lu Wenju replied, she's very understanding, she won't mind. Another one, is it too much trouble for me to stay in the VIP room? Your health isn't good, don't think about these things. And another, dated just 2 days before the car accident, Chen Yingxue said, if that investment deal goes through, will you be happy? Lu Wenju replied, you coming back is enough. I stared at the last line for a long time. You coming back is enough. So what were these 7 years to me? Jiang Nan saw my expression and put the screenshots away. Don't look at them for now, I said. Keep them. These might not hold up in court. I know, I said, but they'll stop me from going soft. Jiang Nan looked at me, her gaze softening a little. Gigi, can you still go soft? I thought about it. Yes, she frowned. I said, 7 years isn't 7 days. I'm not a machine, but going soft doesn't mean turning back. Jiang Nan nodded. Now that sounds like something a person would say. That evening, Xiaoju secretly messaged me, Madam, the hospital had a meeting today. The director ordered everyone not to privately discuss what happened on the night of the rescue, and said if anyone leaks internal materials, they'll be held accountable. I replied, protect yourself, don't send any materials privately, wait for the official investigation. Xiaoju quickly responded, I know, but madam, I really feel sorry for you. That day, if I had spoken up earlier, I typed, you have nothing to be sorry for, the one who should really say sorry hasn't said it yet. Xiaoju sent a crying emoji. After a moment, she added another message, Madam, Miss Chen was discharged from the hospital today. The director personally saw her off. I stared at that line, and felt surprisingly little inside. Lu Wenju personally seeing Chen Yingxue out of the hospital, that's just like him, he always shows up when Chen Yingxue needs to be seen, but when I truly needed him, he was signing another authorization form that evening. Lu Wenju didn't call again. I thought he'd finally backed off, but at 9:30, I got a message from property management. Lu Wenju had gone to that wedding house again this time. He wasn't alone. In the surveillance footage, Chen Yingxue stood beside him, wearing a light-colored coat, her face still pale. She looked up at that door, like she was eyeing a position she was about to take over. Lu Wenju opened the door and let her in. I stared at the screen, and suddenly laughed. Jiang Nan asked, "What's so funny?" I handed her my phone. After she watched it, she cursed, "Is he crazy? You're not even divorced yet, and he's taking Chen Yingxue into the wedding house." I said, "Perfect timing." "Perfect timing for what? That house is my premarital property." Jiang Nan froze. I pulled out a copy of the property deed. "It's just that he's been living there since we got married, so a lot of people think it's joint marital property." Jiang Nan's eyes lit up. "Got it." I called the property manager. "Manager Wang, could you please confirm the people currently entering the unit at Building 9, Floor 22, besides Lu Wenju? There's also a non-owner, right?" Manager Wang sounded awkward. "Ms. Lin, Mr. Lu brought her in. The property owner is me. Mr. Lu currently has no authorization from me to bring non-owners in to stay or linger. Please follow the owner's request and go ask the other party to leave. Record everything." There was a 2-second silence on the line. "Understood." 15 minutes later, the surveillance showed property management and security arriving. The door opened, and Lu Wenju's face was grim. Chen Yingxue stood behind him, her eyes red again. The property manager said politely, "Mr. Lu, Ms. Lin has requested that non-owners leave." Lu Wenju snapped, "This is my home." The property manager checked the records. The property deed shows it's Ms. Lin's personal premarital asset. Chen Yingxue's face went pale. I watched Lu Wenju's frozen expression on the screen, and for the first time, I felt that buying that house was worth every penny. He finally understood. I wasn't moving out of his home, I was kicking him out of mine. After the medical complaint was accepted, the hospital's internal investigation finally kicked off. Lu Wenju tried to stop it first. He went to the hospital office, claiming it was a marital dispute and shouldn't be escalated to a medical violation. The office didn't dare touch it. Then he went to the board of directors, arguing that going public would damage the hospital's reputation. The board was more pragmatic than him, asking only one question: is there actually a problem with the surveillance footage and the blood transfusion records? Lu Wenju couldn't answer, so the sealing of materials before the investigation meeting went smoother than I expected, not because they were so fair but because everyone was afraid of being dragged down by Lu Wenju. The day Jiang Nan accompanied me to the hospital, I could already walk short distances on my own. I didn't use a wheelchair, just leaned on a cane. My mother worried I couldn't handle it and wanted to come along, but I refused. "Mom, I'll go alone." She looked at me for a long time, then finally adjusted my scarf. "Don't push yourself. If it hurts, sit down." I nodded. Walking back into Lu Wenju's hospital felt like a lifetime ago. The reception desk in the lobby was something I helped design back in the day. On the wall, a charity project photo still showed Lu Wenju and me together on a medical mission to the mountains. In the picture, I stood beside him, smiling, clean and trusting. Now I walked past that photo without stopping. Someone recognized me and whispered, "Madam." I looked at her. She quickly corrected herself. "Teacher Lin." I smiled. That title sounded much better than director's wife. The investigation material review was set up in the small conference room of the administrative building. The hospital office director, the medical affairs head, Director Han from the blood bank, legal counsel, and third-party mediators were all present. Lu Wenju arrived last. When he pushed the door open, his gaze landed on me first. I was wearing a black dress, draped in a grey coat. My face was still pale, but my makeup was neat. He stared at me for a few seconds, then said in a low voice, "You shouldn't be here right now." I ignored him. Once the meeting started, the Medical Affairs Department first presented the situation from that night. They chose their words carefully. Ms. Lin Zhizhi was admitted to the emergency room on March 17 at dawn due to a traffic accident, with critical conditions including splenic rupture and abdominal bleeding. At the same time, Ms. Chen Yingxue experienced sudden post-operative bleeding. The hospital's blood supply was limited, and the rescue team made an emergency allocation. Jiang Nan flipped open his notebook. Please clarify who made the decision on the allocation. The head of the medical affairs department looked at Lu Wenju. Lu Wenju's face was expressionless. I did, Jiang Nan continued. Was there an in-hospital expert panel that evaluated the situation at the time? It was urgent, no time. Director Han lifted his head slightly. Jiang Nan noticed. Director Han, did you remind Dean Lu at the time that Ms. Lin Zhizhi's blood transfusion request was submitted first and that she was at risk of ongoing blood loss? Director Han paused for 2 seconds. I did. Someone in the meeting room let out a sharp intake of breath. Lu Wenju looked at Director Han. His gaze icy. Director Han didn't look away. As the head of the blood transfusion department, I only explained the procedures and risks. Jiang Nan nodded. Thank you. Next came the blood allocation records. The electronic system log appeared on the screen at 2:47 a.m. My blood transfusion request was submitted at 2:55 a.m. The blood bank confirmed it could supply 4 units of red blood cells at 3:12 a.m. Lu Wenju used his director authority to modify the allocation, transferring 2 of those units to VIP Operating Room 3. Note, Chen Yingxue, emergency rescue at 3:28 a.m. My blood pressure dropped during surgery, and another transfusion request was submitted at 3:46 a.m. An external temporary blood donor screening passed, supplementing the blood supply. The timeline was crystal clear. I sat there, my fingers lightly gripping my cane. So death had been this close to me, only 18 minutes away, only 1 bag of blood from a stranger away. Lu Wenju spoke up. Data can't be separated from on-site judgment. Chen Yingxue had abnormal coagulation function at the time, with high risk from underlying conditions. If there was a delay, the consequences would have been irreversible. Jiang Nan asked, and were the consequences reversible for Ms. Lin Zhizhi? Lu Wenju frowned. She ultimately pulled through. I looked up at him. Lu Wenju, I spoke for the first time in the meeting. Do you think that as long as I didn't die, you're not in the wrong? He stared at me, his lips pressed into a tight line. I didn't say that, but that's what you've always meant. The meeting room fell silent. I gestured to Jiang Nan. Play the surveillance footage. The hospital office director's face changed slightly. The footage involves the privacy of the rescue area and needs careful handling. Jiang Nan cut him off. We're only retrieving footage from the public corridor, not the operating room footage, and Ms. Lin has authorized it personally. The third-party mediator also said, it can be played. The screen went black for a moment, then the corridor footage appeared. The time was 3:09 a.m. The area outside the rescue room was chaotic. A nurse was running from the blood bank direction, pushing a blood cooler. Director Han stood at the end of the corridor. On the phone, Lu Wenju came out of the operating room I was in, pulling off his gloves, his forehead covered in sweat. A doctor ran over. Dean Lu, Miss Chen in VIP Room 3's blood pressure is dropping fast. The blood bank says the blood requested for Teacher Lin just arrived. Lu Wenju asked, what's Zhizhi's blood pressure now? Low, but stable for now. And Chen Yingxue, worse. Director Han hurried over too. Dean Lu, Teacher Lin is continuously losing blood. The blood has already been matched to her. Transferring it carries a high risk. Lu Wenju was silent for less than 3 seconds, then he said, send it to Chen Yingxue first. Director Han was frantic. Then what about Teacher Lin? Lu Wenju's voice was deep. Keep expanding volume. Contact temporary blood donors. She's my wife. I know her. She'll understand. In the meeting room, someone gasped. The nurse on the screen hesitated, holding the blood cooler. Dean Lu, this, Lu Wenju barked. Do as I say. In the footage, the blood cooler was pushed toward another corridor. The red light above the door of the operating room I was in was still on. I stared at that light, like I was seeing myself lying in there 3 days ago, knowing nothing, still believing Lu Wenju would save me. The surveillance continued playing at 3:29 a.m. The door to my operating room was pushed open. The anesthesiologist rushed out shouting. Blood pressure dropped. Where's the blood? The corridor was in chaos. Someone ran to the blood bank. Someone made phone calls. Someone contacted family members to donate blood and Lu Wenju, where was he? He stood outside VIP operating room No. 3, staring at the door until someone inside said, Miss Chen's blood pressure is rising. At that moment, I suddenly didn't feel any pain at all when the heart aches to its limit. It goes numb instead. Jiang Nan turned off the video. The conference room was terrifyingly silent. I looked up at Lu Wenju. His face was as pale as paper. I asked, now, do you still want to say this was a medical judgment? Lu Wenju opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Chen Yingxue wasn't present, but through this surveillance footage, she had finally nailed herself into everyone's line of sight. The hospital office director wiped his sweat. This material needs further verification. I cut him off. You can verify it. I'm not afraid of verification. I took out the wedding ring from my bag. Everyone looked over. I placed the ring on the conference table and pushed it in front of Lu Wenju. Lu Wenju, on the early morning of March 17th, you didn't make a choice as a doctor. I looked at him, my voice not loud, but enough for everyone to hear. You made a choice as a husband, confirming that I would understand, and then you put me last. His eyes flickered. I stood up, my hands propping on the edge of the table. The wound hurt badly, but I stood steady. From today on, I don't understand anymore. The divorce mediation was scheduled 3 days after the investigation meeting. Lu Wenju finally wasn't late. He wore a black suit, no tie. In the past, he rarely dressed like this. His doctor's white coat was like his armor, making him look calm, reliable, and flawless in a crowd. Now, without the white coat, he just looked like a tired man. The mediation room was small, a long table, 2 chairs on each side. Jiang Nan and I sat on one side, Lu Wenju and his lawyer on the other. The mediator started with the procedure, asking both parties if there was any possibility of reconciliation. Lu Wenju immediately looked at me. Yes, I said. No. His eyes dimmed. The mediator looked a bit awkward. Ms. Lin, you can state your demands first. Jiang Nan submitted the documents for me. First, dissolution of the marriage. Second, legal division of marital assets. Third, recovery of Ms. Lin's premarital personal property and personal payments made during the marriage. Fourth, regarding the rescue incident on March 17th, the medical complaint will proceed separately and will not be withdrawn due to the divorce mediation. Lu Wenju's lawyer frowned. Some of Ms. Lin's demands are unrelated to the divorce, especially the medical complaint, which clearly carries a coercive intent. Jiang Nan smiled. A person who almost died on the operating table filing a legal complaint is coercion. Then what do you call diverting the blood supply? The other side went silent. Lu Wenju suddenly spoke. Gigi, I don't want to take this to court with you. I looked at him. Then sign. Except for the divorce, I can compensate for anything. What I want is the divorce. He lowered his voice. You're just in too much pain right now. Once your body recovers and your emotions stabilize, you'll regret this. I smiled. See, you still think this is an emotional issue, isn't it? His eyes were slightly red. We've been married for 7 years. Are you really going to negate everything because of one rescue? It's not me negating it, I said. It's you who weighed our 7-year marriage during that rescue. He froze. I continued, and the scale showed I'm less important than Chen Yingxue. Lu Wenju clenched his fingers. I don't love her. That statement came out of nowhere. Everyone in the mediation room fell silent for a moment. I looked at him. He seemed to have finally found a point to explain. Speaking urgently, I admit, I feel guilty toward Yingxue. When she left the country back then, she was sick, and I wasn't there for her. After she returned, her condition was bad, and I wanted to make it up to her, but that's not love, I asked. Then what is it? Responsibility. I nodded. So you used your responsibility to me to make up for your responsibility to her. His face went pale. Lu Wenju, don't use love to explain a crime, and don't use responsibility to excuse favoritism. His lawyer immediately said, Ms. Lin, please watch your words. Mr. Lu hasn't committed a crime. I looked at him. I'm talking about a moral crime. As for legal and professional responsibility, we'll wait for the investigation results. Jiang Nan lowered her head, holding back a laugh, but Lu Wenju didn't argue. He looked at me, his voice low, almost pleading. Gigi, I really never wanted you to die, but you wanted me to hold on. That sentence left him completely speechless. The mediator sighed. Mr. Lu, since Ms. Lin's intention to divorce is clear. Let's go back to the agreement terms. Lu Wenju suddenly pushed the agreement away. I don't agree, Jiang Nan sneered. Then we'll sue me or separate. Lu Wenju looked at me. I won't sign. Before I could say anything, his phone suddenly rang on the screen. Ingshue. Lu Wenju glanced at me instinctively and hung up within 5 seconds. It rang again. His expression shifted. He stood up, walked to the door, and answered. What's wrong? Whatever was said on the other end made his voice tense immediately. Blood pressure dropped again. Don't cry first. I'll be right there. I sat still, watching him calmly. Such a familiar scene every time we got to a critical point in our conversation. Chen Ingshue would always have an emergency before. I would feel sad, get angry, ask him why he had to leave every time. Now, I just find it absurd. Lu Wenju hung up and turned back to me. Ingshue is having a sudden issue. I need to check on her. Let's reschedule the mediation. I said. No need to reschedule. He frowned. Gigi, her situation is urgent. So what? I asked. You're going to leave me again, to go save her? His face darkened. You know. That's not what I mean. I nodded. Of course I do. You just always choose her, every single time. Lu Wenju stood there, caught between a rock and a hard place. His lawyer whispered, Mr. Lu, the mediation process isn't over yet. His phone rang again. Chen Ingshue had timed it perfectly. Lu Wenju closed his eyes, then finally grabbed his coat. I'll talk when I get back. As he reached the door, I called out to him, Lu Wenju. He turned around. I handed a stack of printed documents to his lawyer. This is a detailed list of Chen Ingshue's fee waivers over the past 6 months under the hospital's charity relief program, plus a timeline of her family's investment intentions and your personal approvals. Please inform Mr. Lu that every time he leaves, it comes at a cost. Lu Wenju's face went pale. You investigated Ingshue. I looked at him. I investigated my money, my life, and my marriage. How is it that everything leads back to her? He froze at the door. Jiang Nan handed over another stack of chat logs, and these, while they might not directly affect the divorce asset division, they're enough to prove Mr. Lu has had long-term personal interactions with MS Chen beyond a normal doctor-patient relationship, and gave her special treatment in resource allocation. One page slipped to the edge of the table. Lu Wenju looked down and saw the line. She's sensible, she won't mind. His face looked like someone had slapped him hard. I stood up. The mediator hurriedly said, Ms. Lin, your health. I'm fine. I picked up my cane and walked over to Lu Wenju. You always say I'm sensible. I looked into his eyes. From today on, you'll find out just how hard it is to appease a Lin Gigi who's no longer sensible. With that, I walked past him, leaving the mediation room first. The hallway was bright. Jiang Nan caught up and asked, Does it hurt? I nodded. It hurts. Can you still hold on? I looked out the window. Sunlight fell on the hospital's white walls, blindingly bright. I can hold on, I said. After all, I've already survived running out of blood once. On the day of the formal investigation, the conference room was packed. The hospital board, medical affairs, nursing department, blood transfusion department, legal team, third-party experts, and 2 officials from the supervising authority were all present. Lu Wenju sat next to the main seat. Not at the main seat. That one detail already said a lot. In the past, whenever Lu Wenju showed up at this hospital, everyone would automatically leave the center spot for him. He was the star. The face, the god Lu patients talked about now. He was seated off to the side. The white light shone on his face, making him look even more haggard than last time. Chen Ingshue was there too. She sat in the back row, wearing a light blue dress with a knitted cardigan over it, still fragile, still pale, her eyes red, like she could cry at any moment. When she saw me come in, she immediately stood up. Sister Gigi. I didn't stop. Jiang Nan pulled out a chair for me. I sat down and placed my file bag on the table. The supervising official opened the meeting. Today, we're investigating whether the blood allocation during the emergency rescue on the early morning of March 17th complied with regulations, whether there was improper intervention, and whether the related charity relief procedures were lawful. Please state the facts truthfully. Lu Wenju spoke first. His voice was still steady. That night, the situation was extremely critical. Both patients were in life-threatening danger. As the lead on duty, I made a temporary blood allocation decision based on my assessment of the conditions at the time. Looking back, MS Lin Jiji was out of danger, and MS, Chen Yingxue also received treatment. From a results perspective, both patients were saved. When I heard that, I couldn't help but laugh. From a results perspective, they always love looking at results. As long as I didn't die, the process could be glossed over. The supervisor looked at me. MS, Lin, if you have any objections, you can add them later. I nodded. I will. Lu Wenju continued. I admit that, as a husband, I had shortcomings in communication. I failed to explain things to MS, Lin Jiji in a timely manner, leading to her misunderstanding. But I do not accept the stigmatization of a complex rescue operation as personal favoritism. Chen Yingxue immediately lowered her head and wiped her tears. Perfect timing. Some people looked at her, their eyes showing sympathy. When it was my turn, I didn't speak right away. I first opened the file bag and laid out the evidence piece by piece: copies of medical records, timeline of blood transfusion requests, blood allocation authorization forms, surveillance disc, transcribed recordings from the hospital room, Chen Yingxue's application materials for the relief fund, proof of payments made during the marriage. With every item I set down, the conference room grew quieter. I said, Lu Wenju just said both patients were saved. From a results perspective, his decision didn't cause any deaths. I looked up, meeting everyone's eyes. Then I want to ask, if someone is pushed off a cliff and happens to get caught on a branch without dying, can the person who pushed them say, from a results perspective, she's alive? No one spoke. I continued. On the early morning of March 17th, I submitted my blood transfusion request first. The blood bank completed the match first. Lu Wenju, knowing full well that I was continuously losing blood, redirected 2 units of blood to Chen Yingxue. That's a fact, backed by system records. Jiang Nan cooperated by turning on the projector. The timeline appeared on the screen. I didn't get emotional, I just read the times. At 2:47 a.m., my transfusion request was submitted. At 2:55 a.m., the blood bank confirmed it. At 3:12 a.m., Lu Wenju modified the allocation. At 3:28 a.m., my blood pressure dropped. At 3:46 a.m., an anonymous donor provided supplementary blood. If it weren't for that donor, would I have died? Let the experts judge. The third-party experts flipped through the materials, their expressions grave. One senior expert said, based on the records, MS, Lin was indeed at continuous risk of blood loss at the time. Delaying the transfusion would have significantly increased the risk of shock and death. Muffled murmurs finally broke out in the conference room. Lu Wenju's face darkened. I looked at him. Did you hear that? It's not me being emotional. He didn't respond. I signaled to play the surveillance footage. That video appeared on the screen again. This time, everyone saw it clearly. Lu Wenju said, send it to Chen Yingxue's side first. Director Han warned him of the risks. Lu Wenju said, she's my wife, I know her, she'll understand. In front of the screen, Chen Yingxue suddenly burst into tears. Brother Wenju just wanted to save me, he didn't mean any harm. I turned to look at her. Miss Chen, you finally admit that you knew he was saving you. She froze. I picked up another document. You called me before, saying you didn't know the blood was diverted from me, but in the recording, you keep emphasizing that you just wanted to survive. Jiang Nan played the recording clip. Chen Yingxue's voice echoed in the conference room. You're already Brother Wenju's wife. You've had him for 7 years. I just want to live. What's wrong with that? Many people's looks toward her shifted. Chen Yingxue's face turned pale. I was emotional then. I misspoke, I said. Every time you misspeak, it lands right on my life. She looked at Lu Wenju, crying. This time, Lu Wenju didn't immediately defend her. His eyes were fixed on the documents on the table, as if he finally realized he couldn't shield her anymore. I continued. Second issue. Whether Chen Yingxue qualifies for the hospital's charitable relief and reduction conditions. The screen switched. The relief fund application form appeared. Applicant, Chen Yingxue. Recommender, Lu Wenju. Review opinion. Approved by the director. The financial reduction items were listed clearly. I said, this relief system was one I helped the hospital establish 3 years ago. Recipients must go through proof of financial hardship, medical assessment, and foundation review. Chen Yingxue submitted no proof of hardship, wasn't on the public list, yet received special approval for reduction. Lu Wenju finally spoke. I can personally make up for this part of the cost. I looked at him. You can make up the money. But you can't make up the process. The supervising official noted down the key points. Some faces on the hospital board had already turned sour. I picked up the last document, third issue, whether the Chen family's investment commitment affected the allocation of medical resources. Lu Wenju jerked his head up. Lin Jiji. This has nothing to do with the rescue. Whether it does or not is for the investigation team to decide. I said, I'm just providing the timeline. I read out a few dates. Chen Yingxue returned to the country and was admitted to the hospital. Lu Wenju contacted the Chen family about the rehabilitation center investment. Chen Yingxue received a VIP ward and fee reductions. Chen Yingxue had postoperative bleeding. Lu Wenju transferred blood. The Chen family's investment kept stalling. Never signed. Each point, taken alone, could be explained, put together. It looked ugly. Chen Yingxue panicked. That's between my father and the hospital. I didn't know. Jiang Nan said calmly, Miss Chen, it's fine. If you don't know, we can ask your father to explain later. She shut up completely. The investigation meeting lasted 3 hours. In the end, the supervising authority ordered the hospital to continue sealing all materials. Lu Wenju was suspended from his duties as hospital director during the investigation, barred from further involvement in the relevant medical records and personnel discussions. Chen Yingxue's fee reductions and VIP resource arrangements were to be separately reviewed. When the meeting ended, Lu Wenju sat in his chair. As if all strength had drained from him, I stood up to leave. He suddenly called out, "Ji." I stopped. He looked at me, his eyes red. Did you have to humiliate me in front of so many people? I turned around. Lu Wenju. When I was lying in that hospital bed with tubes all over me, hearing the nurse say my blood had been swapped for Miss Chen's, that was humiliating too. His face went pale. I continued, but I didn't humiliate you. It's just that what you did finally got seen by others. I picked up my cane and walked toward the door behind me. Chen Yingxue cried out, Wenxu Ji. This time, Lu Wenju didn't move. After the investigation meeting, the hospital's atmosphere shifted fast. Before, everyone called me the director's wife. Those 4 words carried envy, flattery, and a bit of assumption, an assumption that I belonged to Lu Wenju, an assumption that my position came from his status. Now they started calling me Teacher Lin. Someone met me in the elevator and said quietly, Teacher Lin, I'm sorry. I knew not everyone was truly sorry, but they all understood in their hearts that this hospital had once compressed a living person into those 4 words. The director's wife. The director's wife would understand. The director's wife would back down. The director's wife wouldn't pursue it, but Lin Jiji would. When news of Lu Wenxu's suspension spread, Chen Yingxue was the first to lose her composure. Her father's company was already strapped for cash. The so-called investment had never materialized. Now that the hospital was under investigation, the Chen family immediately distanced themselves, claiming it was just a routine business discussion with no commitment. Chen Yingxue called Lu Wenju, crying that her father had scolded her. This time, Lu Wenju didn't go. Xiaoju later told me that Chen Yingxue waited for him at the hospital entrance for 3 hours that day, until her family's driver finally picked her up. Madam, no, Teacher Lin, Xiaoju whispered on the phone. I think she wasn't this fragile before. Today, with no one to coddle her, she cursed out the nurses pretty badly. I wasn't surprised. Fragility is also a performance. As long as someone pays for it, the show can go on forever. Lu Wenju finally saw that what Chen Yingxue needed wasn't him as a person, but the resources, guilt, and favoritism he held, but he saw it too late. On the day the court filed the case, I went in person. Jiang Nan initially told me not to, saying she could handle everything. I insisted, I want to sign for both the beginning and the end. The courthouse lobby was crowded, people argued over child custody, others glared red-eyed over property division, and a young couple sat silently in a corner, as if waiting for a long overdue verdict. I sat on a bench, slowly flipping through the divorce filing materials. A copy of our marriage certificate was clipped to the first page. In the photo, Lu Wenju and I were both young back then. He hadn't learned to put on the director's airs in front of a camera. His smile was a bit goofy. I leaned on his shoulder, my eyes bright as if they held stars. I stared for a few seconds, then turned the page. Jiang Nan asked, Can't let go? No, I said. I just think that version of me was real too. I really loved, I really believed, I really thought 2 people could walk far together through hard work. Admitting that isn't shameful. What's shameful is that Lu Wenju treated my sincerity like an unlimited credit line. After submitting the materials, the staff verified the information, Ms. Lin Jiji, confirming the divorce filing. I nodded, confirmed. The claims include property division, recovery of advanced payments, and demands related to emotional distress, confirmed. When the pen touched the paper, my fingers were still trembling slightly. It wasn't hesitation, it was lack of strength after the injury. Jiang Nan steadied my wrist. Take your time, I wrote my name stroke by stroke. Lin Jiji. After finishing, I let out a long breath. Walking out of the courthouse, Lu Wenju stood at the bottom of the steps. He looked like he'd been waiting for a long time. The wind had messed up his hair, and his eyes were bloodshot. Seeing me come out, he immediately stepped forward. Jiang Nan blocked him. Mr. Lu, talk to the lawyer if you have something to say. Lu Wenju didn't look at her, only at me. Jiji, let's talk, I said. Talk about the lawsuit. Talk to Jiang Nan. Talk about feelings. No need. His voice was hoarse. I'm not here to stop you today. I just want to ask, have you really never thought about giving me a chance? I looked at him. There was pain in his eyes, and reluctance. In the past, I was most afraid of seeing that look. As long as he showed a hint of exhaustion or sadness, I would start to question if I was being too harsh, if he was already tired enough, and I was making him feel worse. But not anymore. I said. Lu Wenju was stunned. I gave you plenty of chances. The first time Chen Yingxue came back and called you in the middle of the night, you lied and said it was a hospital emergency, and I didn't press it. When she checked into the VIP ward, you said she had no one to rely on, and I didn't call you out. When she got the relief fund reduced, I reminded you about the procedural issues. You told me not to be so cold-hearted, and I dropped it. The night of the car accident, if you had saved me by the book, I wouldn't have investigated you. After the rescue, if you had told me the truth right away, I might have listened to your explanation. I paused, but every time, you chose her. Every time, you made me understand. Lu Wenju's eyes reddened. I was wrong. I nodded. I know. He grabbed at a sliver of hope. Then, but I'm not responsible for forgiving you. His expression froze. I kept walking down. Suddenly, he reached out and grabbed my wrist. The grip wasn't hard, but it pressed right on the old needle mark. I winced in pain. Jiang Nan immediately pushed him away. Lu Wenju let go in a panic. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I looked at the faint bruise around my wrist. You never mean to. His face turned pale. Never meant to lie to me. Never meant to be biased. Never meant to let me almost die. Lu Wenju, you've never meant to do it too many times, he whispered. I just wanted to save people. I looked at him, suddenly remembering that video from the investigation. Then save yourself now. He looked up. I said, admit you were wrong, accept the investigation, sign the divorce, and stop tying Chen Yingxue, the hospital, and me together. You've saved so many people, but at least this time, don't use others' pain to pave your own way. Lu Wenju's eyes flickered. After a long silence. He asked, if I sign, is there still a chance for us? I barely hesitated. No. The wind blew across the courthouse steps. His shoulders sagged slightly like a statue finally cracking. I walked past him. His voice came from behind. Jiji, I really loved you. I paused for a moment, but didn't turn around. I really almost died. After those words, he never chased after me again. The day the divorce decree came down, the weather was beautiful. I could already walk a short distance without a cane. The wound left a long scar, curving from my abdomen to my side. When I changed the dressing and saw it for the first time, my mother cried, but I didn't. I reached out and touched the scar. It was ugly, but it proved I had survived. Lu Wenju eventually signed the mediated divorce, not because he suddenly saw the light, but because the investigation results left him no room to delay. The hospital internally determined that he had procedural violations and insufficient conflict of interest avoidance in emergency resource allocation, suspending him from his director position pending further industry sanctions. Chen Yingxue's relief fund reduction was clawed back, and the relevant review personnel were also dealt with. The Chen family's investment completely fell through, and they even turned around to blame Chen Yingxue for personal actions tarnishing the family's reputation. Lu Wenju fell from his pedestal, but it wasn't dramatic. No fanfare, no public condemnation. Just the hospital website quietly removing his director introduction. His name disappeared from the outpatient schedule for a while. People who used to hover around him started to steer clear of his office. This was more real than any public humiliation. What he lost was the dignity he valued most. Chen Yingxue came to see me once after that. I had just finished my follow-up checkup that day and was sitting in the hospital lobby waiting for my mom to pick up my meds. She stood in front of me, a lot thinner, no makeup on her face, and barely any of that fragility left in her eyes. Lin Jiji. She called me by my full name. Are you satisfied now? I looked up at her. What? Wenju is ruined because of you, and so am I, she gritted her teeth. You survived, so why can't you just let us go? That line was way too familiar. I couldn't help but laugh. Chen Yingxue, is that the only thing you people know how to say? Her face turned ugly. I said, me surviving doesn't mean you didn't hurt me. Me not dying doesn't mean you weren't wrong. Her eyes reddened. But I was really dying back then, so you should be thanking the doctors for saving you by the book, not thanking Lu Wenju for breaking the rules to favor you. I looked at her. What you should be most grateful for is that I didn't die. Otherwise, what you'd be facing today wouldn't just be recovering costs and a shattered reputation. She looked like she was choking on her words. I stood up. Now I was steadier than her. Chen Yingxue, wanting to live isn't your mistake. Your mistake is thinking my life was yours to take. Your mistake is using tears to force someone else to pay your tab. Her lips trembled. You think you've won. You're divorced. You've got scars on your body. Your health is wrecked. You've just destroyed yourself too. I looked at her, no anger in my heart. She still thought, even now, that a woman's win or loss was all about a man. Whoever got Lu Wenju won, whoever left the marriage lost. I said, whether I win or not isn't for you to decide. My mom came back with the meds, saw Chen Yingxue, and her face went cold. You still dare to show up? Chen Yingxue instinctively stepped back. I held my mom's arm. Mom, let's go. We walked past her. She suddenly shouted from behind, Wenju won't forget me. I stopped and turned to look at her. Then I wish you two a lifetime of remembering each other. She froze. I didn't look at her again. A few months later, I started working again, not going back to Lu Wenchu's hospital, not back to my old law firm either. Jiang Nan and I set up a small medical communication and compliance studio, specializing in helping patients and hospitals build transparent processes, and also helping some small hospitals improve their emergency resource allocation systems. At my first lecture, I stood on stage, talking about the right to know and resource allocation documentation at the rescue scene. Someone in the audience asked, Teacher Lin, why did you choose this focus? I held the microphone, paused for 2 seconds, then I said, because I was once the person who almost got swallowed up by the system. The room went quiet. I didn't talk about my marriage. I didn't talk about Lu Wenju. I just laid out, one by one, the lessons I'd earned with my life, for more people to hear. After the lecture, I got a text message. It was Lu Wenju. Gigi, I saw the video of your lecture. You're more like yourself than ever. I didn't reply. After a moment, another one came. I signed the disciplinary confirmation and stepped down from management. I'll just be a doctor from now on. I'm sorry. I stared at those 3 words. I'm sorry. A belated apology is like a glass of water that's gone cold by the time it's handed to you. It can't quench your thirst anymore. I deleted the text and put my phone back in my bag. Jiang Nan walked over. Who was that? Spam. She laughed. You did great today. I was so nervous. Didn't show it. She handed me a cup of warm water. Celebrate tonight. I nodded. Sure. As we walked out of the venue, the sunset was beautiful. I stood on the steps, looking down at my ring finger. The mark was already very faint. I sold that ring later and donated the money to the public blood donation organization connected to the stranger who'd given me an emergency blood transfusion back then. I don't know who that person was. The hospital kept their name private for confidentiality, but I've always remembered that someone, when I was at my most helpless, gave me a bag of blood that truly saved my life. Not a promise, not love, just a kindness so real it couldn't be any more real. Later, I went to the seaside for recovery. My mom walked with me on the boardwalk. I walked slowly, but every step was steadier than the last. The sea breeze blew through my hair. My wound still ached sometimes. My mom asked, do you still hate him? I thought about it. I used to. And now I'm busy. She laughed, and as she laughed, her eyes reddened again. I took her arm. Mom, don't cry. I'm really fine. She nodded. I know. In the distance, Someone was flying a kite, the string pulled taut in the wind, but the kite soared high. I suddenly remembered Lu Wenju once telling me that a doctor's hands are meant to save lives, so his life couldn't be tangled up in trivial matters back then. I actually believed him. I handled his trivial matters for him, settled his family affairs, maintained his dignity, and patched up his messes, until one day, lying on the operating table, I finally understood. No one is born to be someone else's rearguard. I have my own life to save, too. From then on, I stopped being the dean's wife, stopped being the dutiful wife, stopped being the Lin Jiji who could always be sacrificed for someone else's sake. I saved myself first.